Imagine you are sitting across from someone, a boss, a partner, a stranger, and the air between you is thick with the unspoken. You want something. A raise, a commitment, a change of heart. Your heart rate climbs, a slight dampness coats your palms, and your brain begins to rehearse the words. But here is the paradox that most people never realize until it is too late. The very second you form those words into a request, you have already lost. The moment you ask, you have handed over the keys to your own autonomy. You have created a binary world where they are the judge and you are the petitioner, and in that moment, you have gifted them the intoxicating power of the word no. It is a heavy word, a word that provides an instant rush of status to the person who says it. But imagine, for a moment, a different reality. Imagine a world where the yes is already living in their mind before you even enter the room. Imagine that the thing you want is something they believe was their idea to give. This is not about manipulation in the way we often think of it, crude, loud, and obvious. This is about the quiet architecture of the human mind and the invisible threads that pull us toward decisions we think we made alone. Most of us move through the world like clumsy giants, knocking over the delicate furniture of other people's egos. We believe that to get what we want, we must be clear, direct, and forceful. We are taught that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But in the realm of deep psychology, the squeaky wheel is often just an annoyance that people want to replace. When you approach someone directly with a demand or a request, you trigger a biological defense mechanism known as psychological reactance. It is a primal flare-up, a cognitive itch that tells the human brain it is being hunted or controlled. The moment a person feels their freedom of choice is being restricted, they will fight to reclaim it. They will say no, not because they disagree with your proposal, but because saying no is the only way they can feel like they are still in charge of their own life. It is a silent, internal rebellion. Every time you ask directly, you are accidentally starting a war you didn't mean to fight. You are losing ground every second you rely on the strength of your own voice rather than the resonance of theirs. We are all bleeding influence because we do and understand that the most powerful force in any room is the one that isn't being heard. Consider the sensation of a cold, smooth stone in your palm. It feels solid, unchanging, and certain. Now imagine that stone is your current worldview. You believe you make your own choices. You believe you chose your car, your career, and your breakfast this morning. But if we peel back the layers of your last major decision, we find a ghost. We find a series of subtle environmental cues, whispered suggestions, and carefully placed options that led you down a path you thought you paved yourself. This is the iceberg of influence. Only 5% of a decision happens in the light of conscious thought. The other 95% is submerged in the dark, cold waters of the subconscious. To get what you want without asking, you must learn to swim in those depths. You must stop talking to the person's conscious mind, the gatekeeper, and start talking to the animal that lives underneath. This requires a shift from explosion to erosion. Think of the way a single drop of water falling consistently over 1,000 years can carve a canyon through solid granite. It doesn't shout at the rock, it doesn't push the rock. It simply exists, inevitably and persistently, until the rock has no choice but to change its shape. Let us look at the first layer of this hidden architecture, the principle of persuasion. Before a seed is planted, the soil must be prepared. If you toss a seed onto dry, packed dirt, the birds will eat it before it can take root. Most people are seed tossers. They walk into a room and throw their idea at someone who is mentally unprepared to receive it. Their soil is acidic with stress or frozen with indifference. To bypass the boredom filter and the reactance shield, you must change the climate of the room before you even arrive. This involves the use of anchors. If you want someone to be generous, you do not ask for generosity. Instead, you tell a story about a third party who showed incredible kindness. You describe the warmth of that person's actions, the way the light hit the room, the specific feeling of relief it brought. You aren't asking them for anything. You are simply painting a picture. But the human brain is a mimic. By focusing their attention on the concept of generosity, you have primed their neural pathways. You have created a mental environment where the idea of giving feels natural, even necessary. The person across from you begins to feel the warmth you described, and they unconsciously want to embody that feeling themselves. Now, consider the texture of an open loop. This is a gap in information that the brain feels an physical urge to close. Think of the last time you heard a song and couldn't remember the name of the artist. It haunted you. It sat in the back of your mind like a splinter. This is the Zeigarnik effect. When we leave a story or a concept unfinished, the brain stays in a state of high arousal. In the world of subtle influence, you don't give the answer. You present the mystery. You talk about a problem that someone solved in a way that was unexpectedly brilliant. You describe the tension, the stakes, and the complexity, but you stop just before the resolution. You let the silence hang there, heavy and inviting. The other person's brain will instinctively reach out to fill that gap. They will start suggesting solutions. And when they eventually land on the solution you wanted all along, they will embrace it with a ferocity they would never show for your ideas, because it is no longer your idea. It is their discovery. They have solved the mystery. They are the hero of the story, and you are simply the witness to their brilliance. As we move deeper into this psychological landscape, the air grows thinner and the stakes feel higher. This brings us to the concept of loss aversion. Humans are biologically wired to fear losing what they have twice as much as they enjoy gaining something new. It is a relic of our evolutionary past, where losing a day's worth of food meant death, but finding an extra day's worth was merely a luxury. If you want someone to move toward a goal, stop talking about the benefits. Benefits are abstract. Benefits are for the future. Instead, talk about what is being eroded right now. Describe the ghost costs, the silent, invisible leak of resources, time, and potential that is happening every second they stay on their current path. Use sensory language. Talk about the rust on their gears, the fraying of their influence, the hollowing out of their competitive edge. Make them feel the weight of the sand slipping through their fingers. When you frame your desired outcome as the only way to stop a loss, you aren't asking them for a favor. You are offering them a life raft. People do and say no to a life raft when they can smell the salt water in their lungs, but how do we maintain this without being detected? The key is narrative transportation. When we are lost in a story, our critical faculty, the part of the brain that looks for flaws and lies, goes to sleep. It's why you can cry at a movie even though you know the actors are on a set and the blood is just corn syrup. To influence without asking, you must stop being a salesperson and start being a world builder. Instead of presenting a plan, describe a future. Don't use bullet points. Use vignettes. Talk about the specific way the light will look in the new office. Mention the sound of the silence that comes when a difficult problem is finally put to rest. Use metaphors that engage the body. If an idea is solid, describe it as having the weight of an oak table. If a process is smooth, describe it like a needle moving across a fresh record. By engaging the senses, you pull the listener out of their analytical brain and into an experiential state. In this state, they aren't judging your logic. They are feeling your reality. And once they have felt it, they will want to inhabit it. Every few minutes in this process, you must utilize a pattern interrupt. The human brain is a master of automation. It likes to categorize things and then stop paying attention. If you are too consistent, you become background noise. You become the hum of the refrigerator or the wind in the trees. To keep the influence active, you must periodically break the rhythm. If you have been speaking in long, flowing, intellectual sentences, stop. Be blunt. Say something slightly off-brand. Change the volume of your voice. Move your body in an unexpected way. This resets the listener's attention. It forces their brain to come back to the present moment to figure out what just happened. It's like a cold splash of water in the middle of a warm bath. It keeps the cognitive pores open, ensuring that your subtle suggestions continue to sink in rather than washing over the surface. Let us go deeper. down to the level of first principles. Why do we want things in the first place? At the core of every human desire is a search for identity. We don't want a product or a result. We want a version of ourselves that we find more acceptable. When you are trying to get what you want, you must ask yourself, who does this person want to be? If you can align your goal with their desired identity, the yes becomes automatic. This is the identity lock. If they pride themselves on being a disruptor, then your idea must be framed as the ultimate act of rebellion. If they pride themselves on being a protector, your idea must be the ultimate shield. You are not changing their mind. You are giving them a mirror that reflects the person they most want to see. This is the highest form of empathy. It is the ability to step so far outside of your own ego that you can inhabit the architecture of theirs. You are looking at the world through their eyes, feeling their fears, and speaking their secret language. In this world of the iceberg, there is no room for hype. Hype is the sound of someone who is afraid they aren't being heard. It is loud, brittle, and easily shattered. True power is quiet. It is the tone of calm intellectual authority. It is the drip of the faucet. When you speak, speak as if the outcome you want is already an established fact of physics. Don't use words like maybe, possibly, or I think. Use the language of inevitability. Instead of saying, we could try this, say, when we begin this phase, the first thing people usually notice is you are skipping the asking phase and moving straight to the operating phase. This creates a psychological slipstream. The other person finds themselves moving along with you because it takes more energy to stop and question the momentum than it does to just keep going. It is the difference between trying to start a car and simply being a passenger in one that is already cruising at 60 miles per hour. We must also understand the shadow of the future. Most influence fails because it feels temporary. It feels like a transaction that ends once the deal is done. To truly get what you want without asking, you must weave your goal into the long-term narrative of the other person's life. You must show them how this moment is a bridge to a version of the future they are already dreaming of. You are not a detour. You are the highway. This requires future pacing. You speak about the year 2027 or 2030 as if you are already there. Looking back at today, you describe the success of your current proposal as a historical event that has already happened. Remember when we decided to move in this direction? It was the turning point that saved us. This creates a memory of the future. The brain has difficulty distinguishing between a vividly imagined event and a real one. If you can make them remember their future success with your idea, they will feel a subconscious obligation to make it real. But what about the struggle? No narrative is compelling without resistance. If you make things sound too easy, the boredom filter will trigger a sense of skepticism. To be truly immersive, you must acknowledge the difficulty. You must bring up the objections before they do. This is tactical empathy. By naming their fears, you're probably worried that this will take too much time, or that the team isn't ready for such a radical shift. You take the teeth out of their resistance. You are showing them that you are not a threat, but a partner who has already walked through the fire they are afraid of. You are validating their survival instincts, which makes them feel safe enough to lower their guard. Once the guard is down, the yes can flow out naturally without the friction of a formal request. Take a moment to feel the weight of your own body in your chair. Feel the texture of your sleeves against your skin. This is the physical reality you inhabit. But the world we have been discussing is the world of the unseen. It is a world where words are not just sounds, but tools that shape the very fabric of social reality. When you master the art of the unasked yes, you are not just getting your way. You are becoming a master of harmony. You are removing the clash from human interaction. You are replacing the push-pull of power dynamics with the flow of shared purpose. You are no longer a beggar at the table of life, hoping for a crumb of agreement. You are the architect of the table itself. The paradox remains, to get everything you want, you must stop wanting it so loudly. You must let go of the ask. You must let go of the need for immediate validation. You must become comfortable with the silence and the drip-drip effect of slow, methodical influence. This is the secret of the greats, the leaders, the healers, and the visionaries who seem to move through the world with an effortless grace. People follow them not because they were told to, but because they feel a deep internal pull to do so. They follow because the yes was planted in their hearts long before the leader ever spoke. Now, as we reach the end of this journey, I want you to look back at your own life. Think of all the times you pushed, pleaded, and petitioned, only to be met with a wall of no. Think of the energy you burned, the relationships you strained, and the reactance you triggered. Was it worth it? Or were you simply playing the game by the wrong set of rules? You have been taught that to be powerful is to be loud. But the most powerful things in the universe, gravity, time, and thought, are completely silent. They don't ask for permission. They don't wait for a yes. They simply are. As you step back into your world, I challenge you to try a radical experiment. For the next 24 hours, do not ask for a single thing. Instead, focus entirely on the iceberg. Focus on the soil, the anchors, the open loops, and the identity of the people around you. See if you can create a yes in the mind of another person without ever opening your mouth to request it. Watch the way they react when they believe the path was theirs to choose. Notice the lack of friction. Notice the surge of genuine connection. When you stop asking, you start receiving. When you stop pushing, you start leading. The world is ready to give you everything you desire, but only if you have the courage to stop demanding it. The question is no longer, how do I get what I want? The question is, are you willing to become the kind of person that others want to give to? Your worldview is the only thing standing in the way of the yes that is already waiting for you.